Amateur Traveler, episode 848. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and an aircraft carrier, Little Italy and street tacos, a pretty famous zoo, and the Comic-Con Museum as we go to the city of San Diego, California. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about San Diego. I'd like to welcome the show Maria Hasse from SanDiegoExplorer.com, also from EuropeUpClose.com, but we're not going to talk about Europe today. We're going to talk about San Diego. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
And what is your connection with San Diego?
So I am from Germany originally, but I moved to San Diego in 2006 to study abroad. And I met my lovely husband here and got stuck. And to be honest, there are worse places in the world to get stuck at. So I'm very happy to be here and call the city home.
Excellent. And why should someone go to San Diego?
Because it's the best city in the world? No, seriously. The weather is always perfect. It doesn't get much colder than 55 degrees in the winter. And it doesn't get really hot in the summer. Usually it stays around 75 to 85 degrees, depending on where you're at in the county. And the sun's always shining, except for this winter, of course. And there's just so much to do. There's so much variety. You can go literally surfing and skiing in one day, and that is something that not a lot of places offer. It is one of my favorite places, and I travel a lot, so that means something.
Excellent. Yeah, you talked about it being your favorite place. I think I've said on the show before that it used to be that my wife's rules for places she could live were near a major city with all those activities, near the beach, and with a Major League Baseball team. And San Diego was really one of the only other places that was on her list of places she could possibly live, once you rule out Florida, because it's Florida. Now, with the designated hitter, I don't know that it makes as much difference anymore. So what are we going to do in San Diego? What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Like I said, San Diego has enough to offer for a year of vacation. So it's really hard to narrow down. And it depends a little bit of what kind of traveler are you. If you're coming with a family, for instance, I would recommend a little bit of a different itinerary than if you're coming as a couple or as a solo traveler. There's a big overlap because a lot of places are really fun for everybody. So let's dive right in. When you come to San Diego, I would probably, especially if you're coming with a family and if you're coming in the summertime, I would split it into two parts, a beach part and a downtown and attraction part.
Okay.
Because San Diego has so many gorgeous beaches. You want to spend some time directly on the beach, and it's so much easier if you have a hotel right by the beach. And then it's also easier if you have a place in downtown, because a lot of the attractions are in downtown and in walking distance or just a short Uber ride away. So that makes it convenient if you have two bases throughout the week. If you're a couple traveling by yourself solo and beach is not the main focus of your trip, or you're coming during the colder months of the year, I would definitely pick the Gaslamp Quarter or Little Italy as your home base for the week.
Okay, and both of those are fairly close to downtown. One, Little Italy, just a little further north than Gaslamp.
Yes, it's part
Pretty
of downtown,
central.
so those are just like sub-districts within downtown. Yes. Yeah. And so let's say you're coming with a family. There are a lot of attractions to check out. Definitely don't miss the zoo. I love the zoo. It's one of the best in the world. The animals are well taken care of. I love how they try to imitate the natural habitat of the animals. If you have more time and love animals a lot, definitely check out this safari park in Escondido.
A little further out of town is why you say more time.
Yes, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic. And there isn't a lot to do around that area. So I would recommend just driving there. That is probably the only trip that you actually need a rental car for. The rest of the stuff you can pretty much do with public transport or a short Uber ride or Lyft ride. And
I'd have to say, San Diego Zoo, one of my favorite zoos, in the Wild Animal Park, the Safari Park, I like more. Now, not
Yes.
everybody's going to be that way. It depends on what you like. But if you haven't been to Africa, I feel like their experience where you're in the back of the truck driving through the savannah-like experience is the closest to it I've seen in this sort of zoo-like, wild animal-like environment.
Yes, I agree. It's a very unique place, and I like both. Obviously, since I live in downtown, the zoo is a lot more accessible to me, and I
Sure.
don't make it out to the safari park quite as often, but I love it. And yeah, so I highly recommend those two places. If you have smaller kids, I recommend Legoland in Carlsbad and Sesame Place in Chula Vista. Sesame Place just opened last year, so that's brand new, and I personally haven't checked it out yet because I don't have kids, so it's not really on my top 3 things to do right now, but I will definitely do some inquiries with families that have visited and learn more about this place.
Now, Legoland wasn't open when my kids were that age, when we were down in San Diego. My impression is the sweet spot for Legoland is around 6-year-old. I don't know if you have a different impression from your friends.
Yeah, probably. It depends. I would say probably 4 to 8 would be a good age.
Okay.
Without them being too bored. But to be honest, like one thing that really excites me is they now have a little mini San Diego there. So I actually want to go check that out because that sounds really cute.
So is San Diego built out of Legos?
Yes.
I'm just enough of a Lego geek that I feel like I should get to Legoland, even though I have not been there yet. But
yeah, so maybe if you're here in June, we can go together.
yeah. And Sesame Place, do you have an idea in terms of what age range we're talking about? This is really targeting.
That's probably a little bit younger than Legoland, so I'm guessing like 3 to 7-ish.
Okay.
Or 3 to 8, maybe. I don't know. No.
Got it.
But I mean, there's also some adults that love Sesame Street more than anything. When my husband heard that Sesame Place is opening, he really wanted to go. So.
My kids watched Sesame Street, and it was the one that they would go off to school, and I would be home, and it might not get turned off. Because there was always a second layer of humor for the adults that was going right over the kids' head. They knew that there were adults in the room. And I could watch Sesame Street with them, and it was no problem. Barney, I had to leave the room.
Okay. I don't blame you. Yeah, so now that we have the kids and animal stuff out of the way, let's focus on downtown. Downtown has so much to do. One of my favorite spots is the Maritime Museum, where you can actually visit the Star of India.
The Star of India, the ship.
The ship, yes. It's a beautiful sail ship in the bay overlooking San Diego. It's one of the iconic sites when you do a bay cruise. And it's just fun to actually like be on the ship and check it out.
And it's a clipper ship?
It's a sailboat ship, yes. I don't know what a clipper ship is.
So a clipper ship is a sailing ship from right around the mid-1800s that was a very fast sailing ship, right into the age of steam.
Well, it was a transport ship, I know that. I don't, and yeah. And the time frame sounds right. I just don't know if it was fast or not.
Okay.
And of course the USS Midway. If you're into aircraft carriers, that's always a must-see.
You say the USS Midway, so this is a
Aircraft carrier.
World War II into Vietnam era aircraft carrier, if I recall correctly.
Not World War II. It was.
I don't remember when it was
finished
commissioned.
right after World War II ended.
Yeah, it was that era design,
yes.
But then served up until recovering astronauts from Apollo mission and things like that, is it?
Yes, I think it was decommissioned in 94-ish.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. And what's cool about it is like when you walk through, like a lot of the decor and a lot of the stuff is still as if they had left the ship yesterday.
Okay.
And so it's very interesting to see. You really get a feel of how the sailors lived on the ship and how their daily life is. And you can walk through the ship and you see the dentist down in the basement of the ship, and you see all the different levels of accommodation, let's put it that way.
Sure.
Shared bunk beds where you slept in shifts to the officers' quarters where it felt like a a luxury hotel suite. So there were quite stark differences between accommodation levels.
Interesting.
Yes, it's worth checking out. And what I really like about it is talking to the volunteers there. There are a lot of people who had served on the Midway, and they just come every day or a couple times a week and just stand around. You can ask them questions, and they tell you their story and explain things to you, and you really get a feel for how it was to be on the ship and what they went through and things like that. Very educational, and I really enjoyed my visit. And to be honest, everybody I've taken there to see the USS Midway has loved it. Like, they really enjoy it.
Okay.
What else? Balboa Park is also one of the things that everybody has to see, I think. It's a gorgeous park with so many things to do. There's obviously stunning gardens, the Rose Garden and the Desert Garden and all kinds of other gardens. You can actually go hiking in the middle of the city with hiking trails through the canyons, which is pretty unique. And of course, there are the museums. There's almost 20 museums in the park. The newest one is the Comic-Con Museum, which just opened last year.
I did not know they had that. Oh my gosh. So I'm heading down to San Diego with my son and his wife, and he's been to Comic-Con, and I just think you just changed our itinerary. That's funny.
Yeah, so that is definitely worth checking out, and just, it's a nice, relaxing, unwinding day. I recommend going during the week because on the weekends it gets quite crowded, and there's a lot of sellers that sell stuff on the Prado, which is like the main street going down Balboa Park.
Okay.
And it can be a bit crowded, and just, I'm not a big fan of that kind of environment. I prefer a little bit more peace and quiet when I enjoy a garden. So I recommend going a little bit in the off hours.
Okay. Now, and the zoo is actually in Balboa Park. Am I right about that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a great way to combine the two, because Balboa Park, I would say maybe a good 2 hours or so to stroll around, unless you want to see a museum or two. Would be a good time frame to visit. Just to stroll around, grab a coffee, sit by the fountain, things like that. Obviously, if you want to check out several museums, then you could spend a week there. But I think it's definitely a must-do on every San Diego itinerary.
Okay.
And then the next thing I would highly recommend in the downtown area is Little Italy. That place has changed a lot in the last years because they created a place called the Piazza della Famiglia. It feels like an Italian piazza. It's really cute. It's surrounded by restaurants. There's a fountain there. Not quite as impressive as the fountains in Italy, but very cute. Yeah, there are chairs and tables everywhere. There's usually like some sort of live music or a cooking show. There's this famous YouTube chef called Sam the Cooking Guy. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have not.
He's a big YouTube personality, and he opened several restaurants in San Diego. And many of them are in that area. There's a place called the Little Italy Food Hall, which has, I think, 8 or 9 restaurants, and he owns several restaurants in the Little Italy Food Hall, like Sam Burgers and Not Tacos. And he has some interesting, unique twists on everyday dishes.
When you were saying he had a different take on things, I was wondering if that was fusion, where you're taking this ingredient from one cuisine and combine it with a...
No, not necessarily, but he does, for instance, things that sound kind of boring in the beginning, but they actually taste really good. For instance, he has a mashed potato taco, which doesn't sound super exciting, but it's actually really good.
Okay. All right, I'll take your word for it.
Yes, and so little twists like that. It's still a taco.
Interesting. And my old favorites, like Felipe's, are still down in Little Italy?
Yes, but I wouldn't recommend going there.
Oh, no.
It's not my favorite. I feel like people either love or hate Felipe.
Interesting.
There are so many really good restaurants in Little Italy, so I wouldn't,
Okay.
Some of the ones that I would recommend instead is Monello and Bencotto. There are 2 sister restaurants that are directly next to each other, and they actually have one of those cheese wheel pasta offers that is absolutely incredible. So if you love cheese and pasta, you have to go to Monello's and Bencotto.
Okay. I'm not picturing a cheese wheel pasta.
Okay, so it's a huge, humongous Parmesan cheese wheel. And when the pasta is cooked, they dump this into a little bowl that was carved out of the cheese wheel, toss the pasta in there, and serve it to you. Usually it's like they have a specials, different kind of specials every night of the week. Sometimes it's with seafood, sometimes it's with bacon, all kinds of different additions to the cheesy sauce.
So they mix, I'm seeing pictures now, and this is such a strange thing. The bowl that they're mixing the pasta in is made of cheese.
Yes. So every strand of pasta is coated with this luscious cheese sauce. It's incredible. It's incredibly stuffing and filling, so easy on the appetizers.
Every single spaghetto, as it were, the singular of the word spaghetti, is covered with cheese. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And what else? Some of the best cappuccinos I've ever had, and also really good gelato you can get at Papalechos. It's like a local favorite, and I hope the locals don't kill me for sharing this little secret, because there's usually already like this a line out the door, and it's worth it. I really like their gelato, and I love their cappuccinos. And another fun one, like I feel like people always say, oh, what are the best Italian restaurants in Little Italy? But there's so many other great cuisines in Little Italy. Don't just stay focused on Italian food. My favorite Italian restaurants aren't even in Little Italy.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want, for instance, a good elevated pub fare, go to Queenstown Public House, which is a New Zealand restaurant, and they have fantastic burgers, really good lamb. It's in a little Victorian house, and the garden is beautifully decorated, and it's like an Instagrammer's heaven. Definitely go there if you want to take some cute pictures.
Okay.
And if you like ramen, head to Underbelly. It's like straight out of Tokyo, this very hip, neon light lit, funky 2-story restaurant that serves really good ramen.
All right then. This episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. I was just chatting with one of my fellow travel bloggers at the conference I'm at last night about how much we enjoy HelloFresh. And one of the things I enjoy is the recipes and flavors in full bloom at HelloFresh. Enjoy the taste of spring with chef-crafted recipes featuring ripe seasonal ingredients delivered right to your door. And HelloFresh does more than just delicious dinners. Not only can you take your pick from 40 weekly recipes, but you could choose from over 100 items to round out your order, from snacks and easy lunches to desserts and pantry necessities. Everything arrives in one box on a delivery date that you choose. So they're making the experience better and better. You can go to HelloFresh.com/amateur16 and use the code amateur16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping because you're a listener of this podcast. To repeat that, that's HelloFresh.com/amateur16 and use the code amateur16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, and I enjoy the recipes. I think you will too, and they're easier to try a new recipe when all the ingredients come in the box. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
And what I wanted to say about Little Italy as well, one of the things that is on the must-do list is their farmers market. It's one of the most popular farmers markets in San Diego. It happens Wednesdays and Saturdays. You can eat your way through, so you definitely can skip a meal after. And they have some really cute, not just food stalls and farmers offerings with produce and stuff, but also like cute little trinkets and souvenirs, t-shirts, and things like that. If you're shopping for souvenirs, that is a great way to find something that is actually made in San Diego by San Diegans, better than a shot glass made in China.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Those are my main recommendations for downtown.
Okay.
You can probably fill a week just staying in downtowns.
Sure.
Then, of course, if you're coming to San Diego, especially for the first time, you have to go to La Jolla. La Jolla is this cute little beach town up north. It is one of the more expensive areas in San Diego, and the houses there are incredible. The restaurants are fantastic. Shopping is amazing. And the best part is you can actually now take the trolley up to La Jolla, which makes it super easy and convenient to reach. Huh. And there's also a bus that goes directly from downtown, which takes more of the scenic route. So if you want to go along the coast and see more of the beach towns along the way, like Pacific Beach and Bird Rock, I would highly recommend it. The bus is number 30, and it leaves right in downtown. You just hop on and hop off in the middle of La Jolla Village. The trolley actually stops at UTC Mall, which is a little bit inland from the beach town of La Jolla. But you can also just hop in an Uber from there or on a bus to head to La Jolla. Got it. Check it out that way. So it's super easy to reach with public transportation as well. And then you don't get stuck on the 5, so with traffic. So I highly recommend it, especially if you want to go on the weekends. Parking can be a bit of a challenge in La Jolla.
Got it. And are we doing anything specific when we get to La Jolla?
La Jolla Village itself has a lot of really cute restaurants, galleries, and shops. So if you want to shop and just window shop and stroll around the town, it's a really nice place. But then what most people do is they walk along the coastal path where you can actually see the cliffs and the ocean. The views are absolutely gorgeous. And the best part is you can actually see seals and sea lions there.
Sure.
And that is my favorite part of the If you want to experience a little bit more of a natural experience, add hiking at Torrey Pines to your itinerary. The views from the cliffs up there, it's a nature preserve that is up on a cliff and overlooks the Pacific Ocean with a beautiful beach on the bottom. The hiking there is pretty beginner friendly. Parking can be a bit tricky. So there's 2 options for parking. You can either park in the state park, which is quite expensive. I think it's $20 a day. Or you can try your luck. There's also off-street parking, and you just have to maybe wait 10-15 minutes for somebody to leave. But usually you're lucky, especially if you go early in the morning, you shouldn't have an issue. But the disadvantage is that you then have to walk up the hill.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you drive up the hill and you hike down the coastal trail, you have to hike back up the hill anyways to get your car. So you're not really gaining anything. And if you're out hiking, you might as well add a little hill and a little extra steps to your hike.
Okay.
It's like those people that drive to the closest spot in front of the fitness studio. Some people get obsessed with that, but it gets quite crowded, especially on the weekends, so I recommend also going during the week and getting there early. If you're there, it opens at sunrise. Yeah. If you're there before 10, you should have a vastly better experience than if you go on a Sunday afternoon.
Got it.
So
if I'm there at sunrise, I'm there alone.
Pretty much. Yes.
No, I'm not with my wife, for instance, is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Another fun thing, if you want to do something a little more adventurous, is a kayaking tour into the sea caves. And
so this is La Jolla?
That is really cool. Yeah, that is also in La Jolla, yes. Okay. You start in La Jolla Shores, which is a really nice sandy beach, great for kids, because the currents aren't that strong, and that's where you start with your kayak. And in the beginning, this was one of my first kayaking experiences I've ever had, and in the beginning I was like, I'm going to go through the waves, help me, oh my gosh. But they actually push you out, 1 or 2 people per kayak, and they push you out through the break. And after that, it's pretty beginner friendly. Obviously, it depends a little bit on the weather, but the waves, once you're through the break, are manageable. You stay pretty dry, put it that way.
Okay.
It's also something you can do with, I wouldn't do it with a toddler, but with kids 6 or 8 and older, you can definitely do that. And it's a fun way. You actually go into a cave and kayak through the cave, which is very unique, and not a lot of places you can do that. I would highly recommend looking at the group size when you book one of those tours, and I highly recommend you go with a tour, because you can only go in the cave if you're with a tour guide, and because they can only go at certain times. So check, if you want to do the caves, check for the times when that is possible, because of the tides, obviously. And also check for the group size, because my husband and I, we went with a small group. I think we were 5 people total. So 3 kayaks and the guide, which was amazing. But then we saw other groups with 12, 15 kayaks. And over 20 people in the group. That was probably a quite different experience than what we had. And price-wise, it wasn't that much of a difference.
Okay.
Another cool thing that is totally cheesy but really fun is the San Diego Seal Tour. It is a tour that goes with an amphibious vehicle that turns from a bus into a boat.
Okay, so this is a duck tour.
Yes.
Okay.
And you get to experience the San Diego Bay in a very unique way. And it also goes by some docks where they have the bait fish. And so there's always like a lot of wildlife around there. You can see the seals, and there's also a Navy dolphin training facility right there where they train dolphins to go on missions for the Navy. And sometimes you can see the dolphins jump in their basins that they have. So that is pretty cool.
Okay. Not above a cheesy tour now and then.
Yeah. So here's a funny story. My husband and I, we booked this tour on a Friday morning. My husband was off for 10 a.m. We hadn't had coffee yet or breakfast, so we joined this tour, and our tour guide introduced herself as Mermaid. And she was, let me put it, her level of enthusiasm didn't match ours yet. So to be honest, we thought this tour is going to be very painful. But in the end, she really turned our day around, and we had so much fun. And you really have to lean in. We had a great time. And that's what it's all about, right? Having fun on your vacation.
Very cool.
So now I'm going to tell you about one of my new favorite spots in downtown San Diego.
Okay.
It is called the Rady Shell. And it is an outdoor concert venue in South Embarcadero, so right behind the convention center. It's, like the name would suggest, shaped like a shell, and it sits on a little strip of land surrounding the harbor and has water on all sides of it. So it's it's an incredible experience to see a concert there. You don't even have to get tickets, that's the best part. You can actually sit on the perimeter around the shell and walk there while they have a concert and enjoy the concert for free.
Oh, so it's right just south of Seaport Village then. Okay.
Yes.
We're way downtown. Okay.
Yeah, so it's easy to walk to. There's also like calendars online where you can see when the symphony orchestra is practicing, and you can watch the practice runs for free as well, and the sound checks. It's a really nice experience, even if you don't have tickets to an official show. But I highly recommend you get tickets to a regular show, because the lighting and the atmosphere, and obviously the sound travels a little bit better when you're sitting in the actual concert venue than if you're just standing on the sidelines, if that makes sense. It's really cool, very innovative. It's one of my favorite places to catch a concert or show. They do some cool stuff too. Last year, my husband and I, we watched a concert-led version of The Princess Bride there, which was pretty cool. And things like that. So they do some, fun stuff too. So something that's cool for the whole family.
Okay. And we're right by the gas lamp, which you mentioned as a place that we should go, but you didn't say what we should do there.
Okay. So Gas and Quarter is also definitely a must-do. You must have gone there on your trip to San Diego. It's a fun place to grab dinner, to go out dancing, to go to clubs, to go to bars. During the day, it feels a bit sad, to be honest, because especially during the week, because it's just empty bars are not really like the most attractive thing to look at. On the weekends, though, they close off the main drag, which is Fifth Avenue. Only the cross streets are open for traffic, but the main drag is closed for traffic. And so it's like a little pedestrian area. The restaurants put out outdoor seating areas and things like that. And on Sundays, they have a little craft market where people sell clothing, souvenirs, and things like that as well. So that's pretty cool. So during the day on Sundays, I recommend the Gas and Quarter. During the week, I would not go to the Gas and Quarter during the day. It's pretty, like I said, pretty sad. It's more a night spot.
Well, that's somebody like me who's down there for a baseball game at Petco Park. That's really or just off the gas lamp. So that's where you're going to get something to eat and then walk to the park or something like that.
Yes, exactly, yes. Let's talk about places to eat, because there are quite a few tourist traps, I think. every place that's frequented by tourists.
Sure,
So
yeah.
let me recommend some places that my husband and I love to go to.
Are there particular ones you're telling us not to go to that you're not naming here?
No, I'm not going to do that. Honestly, like after the last couple of years, I don't want to put more stress on restaurants.
Sure, fair enough.
So one of our favorite places with a great atmosphere, it's right on the corner of 5th and where the beautiful Gaslam Quarter sign is, the arch that starts the Gaslam Quarter on 5th Avenue, is a place called Blue and Mickey's. It's a steakhouse and they also have fantastic fish. And the ambiance there is like this old traditional steakhouse with your leather seats. It's just a fun place to go.
Okay.
If you want great Italian food, I just discovered a place called Lavo. It's elevated Italian cuisine. The service is absolutely amazing. Cocktails are great. They have a great wine list. So I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Dobson's is one of those restaurants that has a lot of history. So this used to be the hangout spot where all the reporters from the San Diego Union Tribune used to hang out at, because it's right next to the courthouse, and when anything was happening, it was walking distance to City Hall, so they were always hanging out at Dobson's, and it's a very historic, cool bar with great food and a cool atmosphere, so I really like that. The bar there is just very iconic and a cool spot to hang out. If you're looking for something super modern and a rooftop bar restaurant, go to Lumi. Lumi is a sushi place. They have a really good omikaze, highly recommended. And if you want a really good steak, there are two really great options. One is called Cowboy Star and the other one is called The Huntress. Cowboy Star reminds me of a Texas-style steakhouse, and The Huntress is like a super modern, dark, fun place. They have amazing desserts that are crafted. They look like a little forest scene with some moss on the bottom and a mushroom on top, and it's all edible. Okay. Not edible mushrooms, but edible chocolate that looks like a mushroom. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It's a really fun place to go. Okay. Now let's talk about some of the more hidden places that I would like to talk about. Mm-hmm. And that is Barrio Logan. Barrio Logan, I feel like all the guidebooks, they just skip over because it's an up-and-coming neighborhood. Yep. It's a Hispanic neighborhood, and it has a lot of history. So there's a really strong sense of community there, traditional values and customs, and it has a quite interesting history. Back in the day when the 5 was built, it actually divided the neighborhood of Barrio Logan into Barrio Logan and Logan Heights. Okay. And there was a lot of protests going on, and the community really came together, and because it was a low-income neighborhood, the higher-ups in the San Diego administration thought they could just do it, whatever they wanted, and that they wouldn't get any pushback, but they actually did. And the good part that came out of it is Chicano Park and the Chicano Park Museum, which is now a National Historic Landmark, and it's actually under a bridge, and the pillars of the bridge are used for murals that tell the story of Hispanic history in San Diego and in Mexico. It even shows some Aztec murals depicting the history from way back when, and it's really interesting to walk through and get a glimpse of the pride and the joy of the people that came together to make their neighborhood their own again after this division. And the other good part is that a huge community health center was built in Logan Heights, so there's still some benefit that was reaped because of all the protests and things like that. It's a fun place to go to check out. I would not stay in this area because, first of all, there are no hotels and very few Airbnbs and VRBOs and things like that. And to be honest, like when it's late at night, there are certain areas I wouldn't go to and I would avoid, but the main drag along Logan Avenue, you don't have to worry about anything. You can just walk around and enjoy the shops and restaurants. There's some fantastic restaurants down there. One of the most iconic ones is Las Cuatro Milpas, and that is like an old school Mexican restaurant where you feel like, you know, the abuela is in the kitchen and makes home-cooked food. Really cool. Another great place, and that is actually my favorite Italian restaurant in San Diego, is called Ciccia Osteria. And they have an amazing menu, very decently priced, so you get great value for your money. And they also do a great job with offering vegan options, gluten-free options, really take care of you if you have any kind of allergies or things like that. So that is a great place to be to please a crowd, or if you have different dietary needs.
Okay.
For a more traditional Hispanic experience, for the new modern Hispanic experience, go to Barrio Dog or Salute Tacos. It's like the Americana style of restaurant, so a lot of funky murals, super colorful, a great place to grab a taco, grab a hot dog with all kinds of fancy toppings, and enjoy a michelada.
I'm seeing a picture of this hot dog, and it gives the Chicago dog a run for its money in terms of the number of toppings and things. More cilantro in this than in the Chicago dog, but
yeah, and they have all kinds of different toppings. I think they have 15 different hot dogs on their menu, and then they have like monthly specials as well. If you love hot dogs, that's a place to go, definitely.
I don't know, the Salute tacos, though, that looks like some pretty great street tacos. So
okay, where to next? North and South Park are also the two neighboring neighborhoods that are often overlooked because it's more residential. But I think if you want to just take a low-key afternoon, strolling around, doing some shopping, going to some cool restaurants, if you enjoy like vintage stores and old record shops, comic book stores, that kind of stuff, you should go to North and South Park. They have that kind of stuff. They have some really great restaurants. Louisiana Purchase is a really great one. If you like Thai food, go to Soy 30. And if you're craving a burger, go to The Friendly. It's always on every list of best burgers in San Diego. If you like smashed burgers. If you want something a little bit more fancy and like French food, then go to The Smoking Goat. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a cute little neighborhood joint. I really enjoyed the food there.
And I'm guessing from the name that it's barbecue.
No, it's a French restaurant.
It's a French restaurant. Oh, all right.
Yes.
Smoking Goat. You said it was. You said that, but I'm just losing track. You named so many restaurants so quickly there. Okay.
Yeah. It's also a great spot to hit some breweries. Like Mike Hasse is there, Modern Times, Original 40 Brewing, and Rip Current Brewing.
Okay.
So I really like Mike Hasse. Their beers are pretty good. If you like breweries, go to North and South Park.
Got it. Now, you were going to split our vacation between downtown and the beach. Mm-hmm. And for the beach, we did La Jolla. Is that your beach recommendation here? You've skipped a lot of other beaches, so I didn't know if we're done with the beach or not.
Actually, for beaches, I also recommend two small little beach towns further up north, Oceanside and Carlsbad. They're right next to each other and are grown together. It's hard to tell where Carlsbad ends and Oceanside begins. And they're really nice options, especially if the budget is a little bit lower compared to La Jolla and Coronado.
Okay.
And there's some fun stuff to do. For instance, in Oceanside, they have a farmer's market on Thursdays. That's a regular farmer's market during the day. And then they have a night market, which turns into like food stalls and food trucks, live music and things like that. That's really cool.
This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by Prismatext.
You want to learn a foreign language because you know it will make your travel better, but it's too hard. Prismatext gives you a different way to effortlessly learn a language. You read a story, you learn a language. When you go to prismatext.com, you can download a book and then choose how many of the words in the book are translated into the language you're trying to learn. So as you're reading, say, Agatha Christie, you get more and more Spanish words included in until you find yourself learning Spanish without even thinking about it. They have more than 400 different vocabulary words per book, and Prismatext has found that it's 50% more effective than traditional language acquisition methods. You can choose from one of 16 different languages, Want to learn French while reading biographies, or maybe German with your favorite sci-fi book? It's up to you. Instead of setting aside time to study a language, instead you can practice just by doing what you want to do, reading your favorite book. To learn more, visit prismatext.com and select from hundreds of titles to start learning a language from your favorite stories. To save 20% off your first order, you can use the code AMATEUR, AMATEUR. And thanks to Prismatext for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
They also have a surfer museum, and it's supposedly one of the top spots to go surfing in Southern California.
You are not a surfer, I gather, when you say that.
I'm not, no.
Okay.
No,
fair enough.
That part of the culture has evaded me so far.
Okay.
Another fun place to check out is the famous Top Gun house, which is the house that was featured in the movie Top Gun. It's a must-see before you come to San Diego because there are so many fun filming locations here in the city.
Got it.
And the Top Gun house is located in Oceanside, right on the beach drag. It was moved because there was a hotel built in its original spot.
Okay.
And now it sits between two hotels, and it's this cute little tiny Victorian house, and it's now a pie shop. So you can go...
okay. Even better.
You can go check out your filming location, dream about Tom Cruise, and eat pie in the meantime.
All right.
And yeah. Restaurants are also really good up in North County. There's a restaurant called Valle, which offers the traditional Mexican cuisine of Valle de Guadalupe. Really great. For something a little bit more down to earth, I recommend Flying Pig Pub and Kitchen. And that's like,
okay, you just said down to earth flying pig.
Yeah, because it's like more your regular.
I feel like that sentence doesn't quite hang together there, but.
And if you like sushi and Asian fusion cuisine,
yep.
And that name is gonna throw you off too. It's called Wrench and Rodent. But it tastes better than it sounds.
Okay.
And when it comes to hotels, there are two recommendations I can give, and that is the Mission Pacific, which is more geared towards couples.
Okay.
And then the Seabird Resort, which is actually my favorite. It looks like just a playful beach house. The decoration is very child-oriented, but in a cute way that will make every adult chuckle as well. So it's very nice. I highly recommend go online, check out the pictures of the Seabird Resort. It's fun. It
looks like it could be in Hawaii to me, which is like the Opalanai approach of the lobby.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, a lot of greenery and natural materials, but the decor, when you look at it, there's always like some childlike element to it that is really cute.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Like paintings of puppy dogs and things like that, and yeah, it's really cute. The other place I mentioned is Carlsbad, and like I said, it's directly south of Oceanside, and there's a lot of cool stuff to do. Carlsbad Village is a little open-air shopping mall in the heart of the city, walking distance to the beach. Part of the family can go shopping, the other part can lay on the beach. It's really a cool place to hang out in the downtown area there.
Okay.
If you're lucky enough to visit between March and May, you can check out the Carlsbad Flower Fields.
Oh, right.
Is a sight to see. 70 million flower buds. I can't put it into words. It's absolutely incredible. It's like waves of color. And you're standing in an ocean of just flowers. It's absolutely mesmerizing. I really recommend going there. If you love shopping, there's also a great outlet mall, so you can save some money shopping the big brands for a little less. And if you want to learn a little bit more about aqua farming...
And who doesn't wake up and say, I'd like to learn a little more about aqua farming today?
Actually... Okay, so I am a big oyster lover, and this is the most southern oyster farm in the U.S.
Huh. Okay.
On the West Coast. I think the closest one up north is Morro Bay or something like that. So
Okay.
There's only one oyster farm in Southern California, and that is in Carlsbad, and it's called the Carlsbad Aqua Farm.
Huh.
And you can actually do a tour there, and they tell you all about their process and how they raise their oysters, and then you can try some and take some home with you. Like, let's say you're staying at an Airbnb and have a barbecue, you can shuck some oysters and barbecue them up and have a really delicious dinner.
Okay.
So there are definitely a few day trips that I recommend. Tijuana. I love Tijuana. My husband and I, we go down there all the time. It's a fun spot. You get to see another country in a day trip. How often can you do that? I mean,
Well,
at least
when
in
you
the
say
US.
Tijuana is very close to San Diego.
It's 14 miles from downtown.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can take the trolley, which is amazing. You take the trolley from downtown in about an hour, 50 minutes-ish, depending on which ride you catch.
Okay.
And then you hop on the trolley, and it lets you out right at the border crossing in San Isidro, at the end of the line. You get out, you walk up a little ramp, and go through immigration, and you're in Mexico.
Okay.
It's really cool. I get off and I just walk over. One thing I have to say, at the moment, because wait times are quite long, I only recommend this if you have global entry or Sentry.
Okay. Because it
if
could
you
be
don't
a couple
have
hours
that,
coming back.
It could be several hours
Okay.
of waiting, 4 to 6 hours of waiting,
Oh,
especially
my.
on the weekends. So do
Coming
not do this if
back
you do
in,
not.
not getting into Mexico.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
It has never taken me more than 15 minutes to get into Mexico.
Okay.
Yes. I do not recommend taking your car over there, especially with a rental. Most rental cars prohibit you from driving into Mexico. The driving is a little bit different than in the US. I've driven there. I'm okay with it. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking, so I don't recommend it. Unless you're just like driving through Tijuana, to drive on the coastal highway to get to Rosarito or Ensenada.
Yep.
You're good to go, because that is pretty easy. It doesn't take you through the heart of downtown. But just keep your fingers crossed you don't get lost on the way back, because then you're going to end up in downtown, and that's not fun. I recommend walking over and then taking Uber, which works perfect in Tijuana as well.
And then where are you Ubering to? Are you going to the dog races? Or are you going to dinner? What are you doing in Tijuana?
One of the main places to go is Avenida de Revolucion, and that is like the main drag with a lot of restaurants and bars and shops and things like that. One of the places I highly recommend is Restaurant Caesar's, which is actually where the original Caesar salad
come from. Yep.
was invented. And it's a really nice restaurant with a gorgeous bar, and the setting is very nice. You sit down, and when you order the Caesar salad, they actually prepare it tableside, so it's a fun experience.
Okay.
And the other thing that I highly recommend is doing a taco tour, a guided tour that takes you to all the hidden spots to grab the best tacos.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to be a little bit of an adventurous eater, I have to say that, because they really take you to like street food taco shops.
Sure.
That are sometimes not more than a little cart on the side of the street.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's so good. You don't get better tacos than that.
Okay.
Since we're already in Mexico, if you want to go a little bit further, I would recommend you go to my favorite wine region in Southern California called Valle de Guadalupe. It's about an hour and 15 to an hour and a half from San Diego once you cross the border. And it's a little bit inland. It's about halfway between Rosarito and Ensenada.
Okay.
Inland from there. The wineries there are incredible. You can still meet the winemakers. You can talk to them. It's a lot less pretentious than some of the bigger California wine regions. They tell you how they produce the wine. They introduce you about the flavors and the region and why the wine is grown the way and how they cultivate the wine and all of those things.
Got it.
And one of the places that I recommend is a place called, and I'm going to butcher the name because I have no idea how to pronounce it. It's called Domecq. It's Domecq.
Okay.
And they have a really great wine tasting that tells you a lot about the history and the different wines. But they also have a wine museum. And it tells you the story because the Valle de Guadalupe was actually started as a brandy production area. So brandy is a byproduct of producing wine.
Sure.
But that was their main focus in the beginning. And then only later on they transitioned into becoming a wine region. So that's pretty cool. I highly recommend, and that tour is included in your wine tastings. I highly recommend this winery for this reason. Other cool places to check out are the wineries called El Cielo, La Seto. La Seto is the biggest one, I think. And the last one isn't a winery, but they have a wine tasting room in an event room, and it's called Casa Frida. It is decorated in the style of Frida Kahlo. There are self-portraits of her everywhere, and it's very colorful and just a very cool spot to enjoy a glass of wine if you drink wine. And I highly recommend stopping by there as well.
Excellent. We are coming up on an hour as we're recording this. Are there other places that we want to get to before we wrap this up?
So I know that you already talked a little bit about Julian in a previous episode about San Diego, so you should listen to that. But let's recap a little bit. It's a really cool, quaint mountain town. They have great hiking. I recommend Eagle Rock, which is about a 7-mile hike, and it leads you to a rock formation that literally looks like an eagle. It's amazing. And Vulcan Mountain. But my favorite place to go in Julian is the Wolf Sanctuary. It's a wildlife sanctuary for wolves, Mexican wolves, and the Pacific gray wolf. You can actually do a tour with a naturalist. Usually they are biologists that know a lot about the animals and can give you usually about an hour to an hour and a half tour telling you everything about wolves and their habitats and their natural life, and also about the animals that they have there. Also the preservation methods that they do to save the wolves and make sure that they're not going extinct. I really enjoyed that. That was actually a find that my brother-in-law from Germany told me about. So when he did his research about his trip to California, he told me about that this was on his must-do list, and I was like, what? Wolf Sanctuary in Julian? Never heard about it. And that was pretty cool. Not too far from Julian, so you can actually combine those two, is a place called Anza Borrego. It's a state park. It's a beautiful desert getaway, so be prepared if you go there in the summer. It can easily be 105 to 115 degrees. I recommend going in the winter. Yeah. But it's a great place for hiking. And if you don't want to go hiking, go for the art. There are about 130 metal sculptures by an artist called Ricardo Braceda. And they're just dotted around the landscape. Huge statues. One of them is a dragon that goes across a road and is over 350 feet long.
Oh, I've seen pictures of this. I didn't realize that's where that was. Okay.
Yes. I highly recommend it. Go there early in the morning before it gets too hot. And then on your way back, stop in Julian for some apple pie and maybe go to the Wolf Sanctuary. That would be my recommendation for a day trip, but preferably in the winter.
And make sure we're stopping at the Julian Pie Company, I would assume?
No, I actually prefer Apple Pie Alley. That's my go-to.
Okay.
But Mom's is also pretty good. So I actually did a full review on my website about the best places. That was one of my COVID projects. I went to Julian and I tried all the pies.
Okay. All right.
Yes. I have a full review of the best apple pies in Julian on my website.
Excellent.
Because it's funny, like San Diegans, and I assume also the people in LA, because it's one of those getaway destinations for the weekend for both metropolitan areas.
Right.
Each family has like their pie shop, and they don't stray. So it took a bit of convincing to get my husband to try a different pie shop too. So I wrapped it up in a blog post and made him eat the pie. And in the end, he was very happy.
It's a dirty, thankless job, but somebody has to do it. As we start to wrap this up, I'm starting to get the impression of why you can have a blog just about San Diego. Because I know a dozen other places that we didn't even get to that are some of my favorite places in San Diego. And go listen to some of the older episodes too. There are other places here. But you are standing at the prettiest spot in San Diego. Where are you standing at and what are you looking at?
Okay, I'm going to make this complicated because I'm not going to be standing in San Diego. I'm going to be standing in Coronado looking at San Diego across the bay. I would take the ferry. There's a ferry for, I think it's $7 per person, one way, that takes you across the bay. And it's like a little mini bay cruise. and you end up at the Coronado Ferry Terminal.
Uh-huh.
And there are beautiful restaurants. One of my favorite ones is Peyoi's, and you can sit on their patio and watch the sunset over San Diego. And they have a really good happy hour, so this is the spot to be for sunset and one of my favorite views of San Diego.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in San Diego.
Sweatshirts and shorts. So with our weather, it's funny because the people dress very, I would almost call it like schizophrenically. Like as soon as the temperature drops into the 50s, people dress like it is the heart of winter. Boots, jackets, scarves, hats, gloves, everything comes out. Because they only have 2 days a year to wear that outfit. And then you have the tourists coming in from the Midwest and they're in shorts and flip-flops. That's one of those things that it always makes me chuckle, how people dress for the weather in San Diego.
Funny. And if you had to summarize San Diego in just 3 words, what 3 words would you choose?
Sunny.
Yeah.
Food. Friendly.
Excellent. Our guest again has been Maria Hasse from EuropeUpClose.com, but more importantly from SanDiegoExplorer.com. And Maria, if we wanted to point people to your best post on SanDiegoExplorer.com, where are we going to point them to?
Oh, probably my homepage, because then you can reach all the other posts from there.
Okay. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for San Diego.
Well, you're welcome. It was fun being here, and I hope this helps people plan their trip to San Diego and find some of the more hidden spots and the must-sees.
Thanks, as always, to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. Looking forward to a Patreon Zoom call later in this month. If you're interested in becoming a patron of the show or just learning more about it, you can go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. It's kind of an odd thing here. I am still on vacation, or at least still traveling. Vacation is always a relative thing when you're a travel blogger. I was in Greece last week on a small boat sailing cruise in the Saronic Islands and around the Peloponnese that you'll hear more about, I believe, next week. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about that trip, but I'm still at the TBEX conference in Kalamata. And it's kind of weird when you poke your head up after editing a show about San Diego for a couple hours and you're in Greece, and it's a little disorienting, but looking forward to the rest of this conference and then also to getting home again. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
I got to see